Then there's Mike McDaniel. So Mike McDaniel was asked
He's not like
today. He was asked about being on the hot seat. And he responds, we have his entire response here. He responds like, oh, yeah, well, Nick Sirianni was on the hot seat. And look what happened there. So I don't deny it, but I embrace being on the hot seat. But here's the answer from Mike McDaniel about being on the hot seat.
I think Nick Sirianni was, I want to be on that hot seat he was on last year. But what else would I expect? You're not entitled to position, and ultimately, if it's deemed that someone, the organization would be best served with someone else, like I'm more on board with that than people realize. I think that's a natural part of it. It's why it's why I was able to not change when the same people are pointing out my failures were hyping me up through success. This is the fastest changing world in sports. Again, Nick Sirianni was on the hottest seat. But so if we had more closer to the season that we were chasing, if we won 2 more games, does that make me a different coach? I think it's important for me to do my job the right way, that I never look at any sort of entitlement to having the job, because shame on me for everybody involved. And that I'm very comfortable in that. So every year, to me, if you're not feeling heat on the seat, you have the wrong urgency. It should be that way every year, because this is not my gift. This is an incredible responsibility that I only sign up for because I think I'm the best person suited for it, and it's as matter of fact as that. So we don't have to have any of those weird conversations.
I get what he's trying to say. He has sometimes a difficult time verbalizing something in a succinct fashion.
Yeah. Wrap it up, son.
What he's trying to say is what I've said about our show a million times over. When they find someone who can do this better at a better price, who generates better ratings and more revenue, I can't blame them for that. I get that. And that's what he's saying. I'm not certain, though, that he recognizes just how hot his seat is.
Yes.
I think it is scorching hot.
I think
they better win and win quickly.
I think they got to do it. I think the nuance to it. We always talk about the real information being down here. But as he was talking, honestly, I just started brainstorming about coaches that aren't on the hot seat. There are way more coaches on the hot seat than aren't.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I just wrote it down. Both Harbaugh brothers, I think they're fine. Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, Dan Campbell, Sean McVay, McDermott, LaFleur, Shanahan, McVay. 10 names. I think they're secure in their job as head coaches. I think the other 22 coaches could get fired at any moment. I would
say this. You have to have a chance, though. The other 22 coaches have to have a chance to be epically bad. And so you can X out some of those teams. You could look at some of those teams and go, well, they're not going to be epically bad, and they're going to be hanging around. This Miami team, I really believe this is a bleep or get off the pot kind of season. I know I feel that way going in. Now, again, I'm with Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer. I think they're very close. I think they're going to have a great season. I don't think he has anything to worry about. But I think that seat is going to be scorching hot if they don't win quickly.
And when I like Pete Carroll in Vegas, he's not on the hot seat.
He's not going anywhere. He's going to get at least a season or 2, maybe 3. Unless it's an epic disaster.
Yeah, 1-16. But I'm saying like guys that are, I would say, I guess, secure in their job is about 10 guys. Then there's some neutrals, to your point. Then there's hot seat guys. I don't think McDaniel's a neutral. I think
No.
if we don't make a playoff run here after you've paid all these guys, we're always above the salary cap. You have your quarterback. You've locked your quarterback back in. You have one of the best receivers in the league. You've picked out the running backs you want. I think McDaniel is a hot seat guy. He's not a neutral guy.
Or he truly has a better understanding of the tenor inside the organization from Stephen Ross down. And that's why he doesn't, I guess, perceive the seat to be as hot as we believe it is. Because I'll tell you honestly, Hawk, I thought last year was bleep or get off the pot. I really did.
But there was enough context, I think, last season with Tua going out. I think there was enough context to say, hey, you can't use this season as a barometer. But I think that context goes out the window this season because he used it last season. It's like you get the one lifeline with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Well, you've used that now. So now there's got to be results. Even if the same stuff happens, even if you deal with injuries, the injury lifeline, I think, is out the window.
And that answer, it's like when people say pressure is a privilege. That's kind of like, it's like his answer was, if I'm not on the hot seat, then, what are we really doing? That pressure is a privilege thing. No, people that are great at what they do, they don't have any pressure. Mike Tomlin is not pressured into his job like that. There's no privilege to be pressured, but it's a cute saying. It's almost like the Denzel stuff we talk about, Hawk, where, you can say some cute little phrases that make it sound good. You have been unsuccessful as the Dolphins head coach. When are we going to start? When are you going to be successful? And
has he been unsuccessful as the Dolphins head coach?
Zero playoff wins. Yes.
2 trips to the playoffs.
But you have utilized. I would say you have one of the best rosters I've seen since I retired from the Dolphins. And I went to the playoffs in 2008 with Chad Pennington as the quarterback running a high school offense. And we went and got our ass whooped by the Ravens, but you've done the same thing. And you spent a bunch of money and brought in a bunch of players.
He was brought here to change the status quo, to rattle the status quo, and he's just been status quo. So in my opinion, yes, he's been a failure to this point.
Tony Sperano went to the playoffs. Adam Gase went to the playoffs.
Brian Flores went to the playoffs. Do you want, as Mike McDaniel, would you say being on that list of guys is successful? I just don't know if I'm ready to call his tenure unsuccessful at this point.
He has the same postseason success as Flores, Sperano, Gase. That's where he's even with right now, those guys.
And he didn't narrow the gap with the best teams. That to me is why I would consider it not a success or unsuccessful. Because at the very least, had you played Kansas City close 2 years ago in the playoffs and Mahomes just did what Mahomes does, he beat you by a game-winning field goal, or had you not got blown out in week 2 against the Buffalo Bills, then, we could say, hey, they're there. They're close. But
you're going to think I'm lying. You're going to think I'm trolling you. I would love to have a cup of coffee and a piece of pie with Mike McDaniel at Denny's. I really would. I'm not kidding you. I think that would be an absolute treat, rather than have a beer with him somewhere. Like, I would love to have a cup of coffee and a piece of pie with Mike McDaniel at Denny's.
You better take a Red Bull, too, and Celsius or whatever other energy drink to sit down with him with nothing else going on. Think about him in Denny's with no other excitement around him.
I think it would be fascinating.
It would last 7.5 hours.
I know. But I think it would be fascinating. I don't think there would be drop-offs,
How are you doing, coach? That's an hour and 15-minute answer.
Flores didn't make the playoffs, people are saying? Is that true? I thought Flo made the playoffs.
Brian Flores did not make the playoffs.
He did not. Okay. Well, that was
you got me, too. I knew Gase made it, and I knew Sperano made it.
I thought Flores made it for some reason.
Flo had that one season where they started like 1-7, and then they won whatever it was, 8 of their final 9 games.
3 seasons, he never went to the playoffs?
Year 1 was the rebuild. Year 2, they didn't make the playoffs. Year 3, that was a COVID year. And then year 3 was his final season when, again, they started 1-6. But I don't remember exactly what it was, but 1 and something. and then they won like 7 of their last 8 to end the season, still missed the playoffs.
So since I got here, since 2000, Gase, McDaniel, and Sperano have made playoff appearances and all lost. And that's McDaniel's group of people he's with.